Thank you so much for joining the Mothers-in-Law podcast. We are so privileged to have Suzanne Leslie back with us today to share an incredibly impactful story that truly changed the way that I feel about the guilt I've experienced as a mom and a lawyer. Enjoy.
Welcome to The Mothers-in-Law, a podcast exploring the demanding world of being a mother and a lawyer. Join my mom, Carrie Foliani, as she shares real-life stories and practical tips to help you find joy and balance in your life. Let's embark on this journey of community and support together. This show is sponsored by General Counsel West, a law firm that supports companies transforming healthcare comprised of mothers and fathers practicing law.
I do want to go back to the guilt because I think in our earlier conversation, you absolutely blew me away in sharing, because we all come to this, even when our kids are proud of us.
Yeah.
Feeling regretful, sometimes even resentful of not being able to be there and all the things. So I just want to know if you could share just about your experience with guilt and kind of how you worked through it.
Yeah, so my son from early had just problems listening to other people, doing what other people, especially teachers in school. He ended up in special education. They said he had like an anger management, not ADHD or anything like that, but I was constantly called to the school a lot. And he just wasn't a school kid, even though he's bright as heck. He just hated school. So when he got a little bit older, it was the same thing, couldn't get him through high school. And then, you're going to be 18 and you want to be the tough mom, which I never was, but, be the tough mom, do the tough love, make him go, leave the house, whatever it happened to be. So just kind of over a numerous years at certain level when he was younger, I had to be there, but I was always there when he was in trouble. And so that was like, this is
So
not
hard.
the type of time that I want to spend with my son. And then after he's gotten in trouble, decide what the consequences are going to be. And our conversations, it seemed like all through elementary and even middle school and high school was, why did you have to do that? Now you've got to learn from it. So it was just always just never a good feel or conversation for the longest time. And then after he did go to school for a little while and again just suffered from depression and got into some issues with alcohol. And finally they say you're going to hit, rock bottom. And he did. And he went to rehab. And this was during the COVID or just after, so you couldn't go and have one-on-one time, or they would do family time or family,
Oh, wow, you couldn't see him.
you couldn't see, so everything was on Zoom.
Okay.
And they were talking about parenting and, kids that are addicts, whether it's drug or alcohol, a lot of times, the parents feel so guilty over it. And there was one session that they asked if anybody wanted to speak, and there's nothing worse than silence in a room, so I'll always speak up. And I just said, I feel really guilty that I wasn't there enough for my son, and I feel like all the issues that he's had is my responsibility, and it's my fault because I wasn't there all the time, because I was a working mom. And that is something that I've carried with me for years. And it was a struggle to say, because it was a feeling I had for so long that I never verbalized.
Yeah.
So it was really emotional. And my son was sitting, I could barely see, because 10, 15 people in a room, and he was in the very back, and he got up and he walked right to that camera. And he looked in that camera and he said, "Don't you ever feel guilty. You gave me the most wonderful childhood. I was a difficult child. You are not the reason why I'm here. You were at every, school play, every, event that you needed to be at. You picked me up. You took me to practice every day. You never missed any of my games. You didn't have to be the room mom. You didn't have to be there 24/7. You are not the reason why I'm going through what I'm going through. You're the best mom I could ever ask for. And man, I mean, he and I had never had this conversation, and I had never verbalized it, like I said before. So that was a turning point, probably been 4 years or so ago now, that I finally got a chance to, number one, say my guilt, and then hear back from my son that it
was misplaced.
It was misplaced. Yeah, and it's released it from me, and so I've gone now since then, and don't feel guilty about not being there 24/7 for them.
Change like the core. I mean, when you share that with me, it changed something within me, quite honestly, because I walk around with different. Every child comes with the challenges that we somehow believe are our own and that we created for them. And it's just such a powerful, and I'm so grateful that you shared that, because I know it will help so many people that sit in that same spot. And I would love just to know, like, in that moment, like, what that felt like for you.
Yeah, it was a big emotional, complete release. And it's just the fact that he said what he said, because he's a man of very little words, and he doesn't express his feelings, which is part of why he's had a lot, that has gone on in his life since an early age. I mean, it was great. And, it just goes to show you, we want to take on all of our kids' burdens and pains and take them upon ourselves. And we do, and we try, but it's not always us. It's them. When you do, of course, again, I've gone through many years of being a parent now, but you learn you're not responsible for everything they do and say, and you have to do the hard things sometimes and let them fail.
Yeah. And
you've got to let your kids fail.
And that is that's how I was raised.
Yeah. Well,
and that's not how everybody else is being raised.
Well,
that's
been
a struggle.
A change. I shouldn't joke about it, but my husband and I joke about it all the time. I mean, we grew up, in mostly the 70s, I'd say, as kids, in the late 60s, early 70s and whatnot. And everybody didn't get a trophy.
Yeah.
You know, and that's our saying. It's like,
Yeah.
And we didn't have, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you want to give participation trophies, fine. But it's, you're not always going to be the winner, and you're not always going to be the best.
Yeah.
But you can strive to be the best or try to be the winner. I mean, I learned that. I grew up in a very athletic family. I played sports my whole life. And I was never the best. But that didn't mean I didn't try to be the best. And I had the attitude of, I want to be the best, and I don't want anything to be given to me. And so I tried to raise my kids that way, but it's just a little softer, today, I guess. And that's okay, We didn't have computers and iPads and screen times and all of that we had to worry about either. So,
but I think learning how to be a good loser
is
important. Also a skill set.
Yes.
I mean, that is a struggle that even, as I am parenting kids are still, striving in their athleticism, but it's okay not to be. Yeah. But as long I look at your work ethic, and I think that is the quality, though, that we obviously value as lawyers, and we know when we're hiring someone or supporting someone, it really is like a critical aspect of what we're looking for. Because the other stuff, if you're used to winning, it's wonderful if your work ethic helped you to do it.
Right,
But it's so tricky.
I think that, and just being, somebody that puts other people's feelings first, it's just...
I totally agree with
not
that.
All, and take, it's hard. Take time to develop relationships, whether it's with your siblings or your parents or your friends or those type of things. It's like everything moves so fast these days that I don't feel like the younger generation has time to build relationships.
Yeah. And in front of each other, like even
in front of each other,
being here in person, like, means so much because we could totally do this via Zoom, and if we had to, but there is something to be said for what we're losing and not encouraging those connections and those relationships, because especially what you do in your line of work as a lawyer, your relationship building skills, it has to be the number one, beyond maybe knowledge, even maybe fall underneath that. You don't need to know everything all the time, but you need to know how to relate to people in a challenging situation.
You couldn't be more perfectly said, because relationship building is number one in anything, whether it's from business development to relationships with your clients to relationships with my employees, to relationships with the people that I network with. It's the number one thing for what I do from a professional standpoint, as well as a personal standpoint too.
No, that totally makes great sense.
So.
And I know you spend, your firm is comprised of a lot of other parents that are kind of doing it in a different time period on some level.
Right.
Do you see, and I know you're a mentor to many of them, like how do you help them or advise them in this time of raising kids? It's a little bit different than when you were doing
very
it.
different. I think that if my child was sick, or if I was going to be late because an issue with the child, I was almost reprimanded for it back in the day. But now I'm just like, hey, these things are going to happen, so you just, deal with it. Hey, if your kid's sick, be home with them, or if you don't have somebody to watch them. It's like, there's no guilt associated with being a parent.
Yeah.
I was held to feel guilty at work being a parent. And that is just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I really strive, of course, because maybe I didn't have the work-life balance when I was first starting out as a parent, but I really tried to get that through to the people that, work with me, or the young attorneys, female attorneys especially, that I enjoy mentoring, is find that work-life balance and be forgiving of yourself if you do have to take time to take care of these things. Take it, because you're going to – nothing's worse than you sitting here at work feeling guilty or bad, or – however you're feeling
anywhere.
You can't. Yeah, nobody's winning here. So go take care of it. Our little saying, is we don't work in an emergency room. Nobody's going to die if you have to leave and you have to go take care of something.
But that's such a release for a young attorney. Because I think, all of us were kind of ingrained that we have to do this perfect. And sometimes better than our male colleagues, just because we have to show up in a different way.
Yes.
And just to give women permission to be a parent and an attorney is, something that, in my own experience, I've been so grateful to the mentors and the bosses I've had who's encouraged that. So I can only imagine that you have a bunch of people around you that, hopefully they don't know the difference. It's hard. We've had people leave our firm and go, oh, man, it's not the same everywhere.
Grass is not greener on the other side, right?
And it's a tricky balance of how to encourage that. But I do feel like we have the most productive staff, because everyone on our team knows, we cover for each other, and we also can support each other when you do have a sick kid or someone ends up in the ER or whatever it is, because there's only one guarantee. There was a period whenever the flu was going around, and I said, we should put a sign up that how many days since no kids have been homesick. It was zero for 3 weeks. And it's hard because the moms, for sure, at least the ones that work with us, are in the primary position of needing to manage that. And then even my kids will say, well, when we get sick, we just have to listen to you have calls all day. I'm like, well, that's what we do.
That is one nice thing, is you can do some work from home, whereas I didn't have that opportunity.
That's so
I don't want to sound like a dinosaur.
No, but that's only
there
a
was the
recent phenomenon.
Computers. Yeah,
but even
we didn't have
honestly,
laptops and computers and all that. Sounds terrible, but we didn't.
No, but
back
even
in
before COVID, I feel like that's I had to walk away from my dream job because they weren't comfortable with me working remote 2 days a week.
Yeah.
And now the whole thing is remote. So, we're learning in the process. So I do think that's an
And
advantage.
I think, too, is I have, it's not purposely this year, I have a gentleman that's worked for me. We've worked together for 32 years. And he got divorced when his son was younger. And so whenever his son was sick or his son needed something, and he always knew, he said, I've learned from you that it's okay
Oh my gosh.
for me to say, hey, I can't come in today because my son's sick, or hey, I can't come in, or I have to leave early, or whatever. And he goes, you've always made me feel so comfortable. And it was okay, even though I was the man.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't
Yeah.
have my wife that I could call, or the mother of
Right.
my child all the time
That's
to call.
amazing.
So he goes, I learned that from you, that, it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. And
it's
I think,
okay, yeah.
But that, the terminology everyone's kind of focused on is psychological safety, which obviously you created before it was sort of a coined term. But it's like being able just to be authentic in your needs, especially as a parent that's working so hard to do all the things professionally. But when you have that responsibility as a parent, to not have a boss or someone that you report to make it worse.
Yes.
And actually make it better.
Yeah.
That is what we should all be striving to.
Yeah. It's interesting because the original owner of the firm, as difficult as he made it for me, he was my mentor, and I learned a lot of, maybe this isn't how I would do something. So learning the flip side of things is a good thing too. So I learned a lot of my ethics from him, and my morals, and how to do things within our practice and do them the right way. But then I also learned, if I ever have my own practice, or anybody's ever working for me, he never had children.
Right,
so,
they don't know.
They don't know.
Yeah.
So and he came from a very broken family. So it was just like, okay, I'm going to take all these things I learned from you, but I'm going to incorporate all these other things.
Yeah, but that makes
and try to
your
give
vision.
Yeah, try to give the best, of both of those worlds to so we want to be good parents,
No, it's a huge priority, and it's a short period of time when you have to impact these
Very
humans,
short.
right? So
Yes.
it's like, I know we were talking about the blinking thing, but it is like how to maximize your impact.
Yes.
And to build that relationship, knowing that we have these huge jobs, and we want to do great at everything. Is there any tips or tricks that you can help us out?
Give yourself some grace.
Yeah, I love
It's
that.
not always going to be
No,
perfect.
That's true.
I never sent my kids to school with dirty clothes, but if I did, it would have been okay.
It's okay. Yeah.
I think it's just making sure that your kids are being heard, that you're giving them the quality time that they need to have. You don't have to hover over them. They don't need me sitting on, I'm sure I'm sitting on their shoulder. They can hear me, but I don't have to be looking over their shoulder at all times, and let them develop into their own, people. But then when I'm at work, be very present, and efficiency is number one for sure.
Yeah.
And take seriously, what you're doing on both ends.
How that is just it's sort of more on the legal professional side, but I think logistical expertise is sort of part of, like, I'm expecting as a planner, especially. How did you manage, like, your priorities at work and knowing what those were, and then figuring out the priorities at home, like even just on a day-to-day basis, if you can remember, like, what that was like and how you did it?
Looking back, I don't think I did a very good job sometimes of that. I probably prioritized work over my family at times when I was trying to climb that ladder. I tried to be cognizant of that, but there are times I'll look back and go, maybe I could have taken that day off or done something, even though it seemed like a minor event that was going on with the kids. But so it's interesting, because I think in my earlier years I probably didn't prioritize, and then they start to grow up quickly, right? And then all of a sudden they're 5, and then they're 8, and you're like, okay, something's got to change here. And having conversations with my husband about that were really important.
Okay.
Because I would say to him, am I doing enough? Because, I'm taking care of him too, right?
Right.
It's like a third child sometimes.
Sometimes I hear you.
Yeah. So I think that, he and I having a really good relationship where I could be honest with how I was feeling, and my guilt, share that with him. sometimes. But I don't know that I did a great job at the beginning until they, like I said, they just started to grow up so quickly
Yeah.
that I had to just all of a sudden say, stop,
Right. Time does stop.
Stop.
Right. Yeah.
just stop.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's okay to not be everything all the time to everyone.
That is a big
Stop.
Yeah.
And just recognize when I need to shift a little bit more to
Yeah.
the family
Mm-hmm.
and when it was okay to shift a little bit more to work, like if there was a big project or a big case. And I litigated for the first 12 years, and that was tough.
Oh my gosh.
When my daughter was 3 months old, I was in my first trial.
Wow.
And that was tough. But I think where that shift of that priority changed is when I got out of litigation. The owner of the firm was going to start to walk away from the firm, and he said, okay, I'd like you to come over and learn business development, learn how to meet with the clients, sign up the clients, do the negotiations. There was, in my mind, now that I'm talking about it, that was my shift of, being a litigator is a lot of work. You're working all the time. When I left work, I left work. When I was a litigator, I never left work. It was always on my mind. So I think that when he left and I shifted my duties and responsibilities at my office is where my priority kind of shifted back to the family. And that just happened to correspond with, the kids getting to be like, 4 to 9, like right in that age.
That was good timing. I mean, I think I've talked to a few litigators, and it just seems like such a difficult aspect of the law to be in with young children. I mean,
I agree. My niece is 5 years in. She's a DA, and she's so stressed all the time because she's in trial all the time. And she doesn't have any kids. And she said, I'm going to give it another, X number of years before I even think about having children, because this is what I've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do it, but I'm also seeing now I'm not going to be able to do it for, the rest of my life,
and it's
the rest
good
of
for
my
them to
career.
see that, though, before.
Yeah, and she and I have had conversations about the stress of having raising a family and being an attorney, and I could not have continued in litigation for me. And when the kids got to where they were a lot of after school things and a lot of sports and a lot of this and a lot of traveling for sports and that type of stuff. So for me, it's funny, I never thought about it till you asked that question. I think that happened to be the shift in for me, is getting out of litigation and doing more of the transactional.
The business and transaction.
Yeah,
because I think it's just hard because people that are born to do it, right? Their passion.
Absolutely.
And you see these women and they are just like incredibly skilled and they shine. You can see the light emit from them when they're litigating, and then they have a child and you recognize, wow, this is really going to be difficult. And to transition, it's kind of one of the first sort of losses as a mom away from that dream to hopefully another dream for a while, maybe not forever. But I do, even with someone like your niece, even how you describe her, I can tell she loves what she's doing. Yeah. Right. And so, but being prepared to know and to start even thinking before you have a child, what other avenues of the law might be more conducive.
Exactly.
And that's, I didn't even really think through that, before I had children. I knew there was a daycare at one of the places I worked at that you needed to apply for when you get pregnant, because it was already booked up. I mean, I'm like, wow, that's kind of strange. No, they're open from 6 until 9 or something. I'm like, wow, those are a lot of hours. But it didn't occur to me because I didn't have kids, but people really
that was a great thing. I wish I had that.
Yeah, they could have gone and you can go and have lunch with your kid and go back to work. It was brilliant. But just even think, that was the first time I thought of how people were trying to merge, But I think litigation's much harder thing to merge.
And, back then, too, it's like nowadays, because, I sound so old, but there wasn't the emails and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So when you went home, unless you physically brought work with you home, there wasn't any work to do.
Yeah.
So that was an advantage of
That's so.
being a
We're
mom back
walking
then
around with our
versus now.
computers. Yeah.
Whereas now, I mean, I'm, if I'm sitting relaxing on the couch at night, I flip my iPad open, I check my emails all weekend long.
Yeah.
I'm checking my emails, right? And that would have been a lot harder for me if I had all that accessible to me when I was raising my kids. I didn't. So when I left work, I left work.
It forced. It's
It
like
forced,
a forced
yeah,
hiatus.
it was that forced
yeah,
thing.
for a few
So
hours. at least,
I think
yeah.
for younger, attorney moms now, it's harder.
Yeah.
Because it's harder to turn it off.
It follows you around, and
Yeah.
I even it's a discipline to cut it off.
Yes.
Because like I remember like even just in the car, like my business partner called, and it was like 3:00 when he's not picking kids up. But it's exactly when I pick my kids
Yeah.
up. And I answered with a carpool full because I just felt like I needed to, because you're trying to keep up. And afterwards, he called. I said, call me. He said, call me when you get home. And I'm like, okay. And he called me and says, just so you know, when you have a car full of kids, you don't have to answer. And it shocked me because I was like, aren't I supposed to be on all the time?
Right.
Like, no, you can take a break, put the phone in the back. But we have these things that force us into being 24/7.
Right.
And I think it is a different discipline that we have to exercise of, like, even like when I take my kids to the park, I leave the phone in the car. I am not, saving anybody either.
Yeah.
Like for 15 minutes for me to swing and do all the things at the park, everyone's going to survive. But it's a discipline to not be needed all the time.
Yes.
Yeah,
because we're used to being needed.
When sometimes kids can also be a little bit frustrating.
Yeah.
So sometimes work can be a distraction from
a healthy distraction.
a
from the
healthy
kids,
distraction from difficult kid situations. So it's kind of we have to really be disciplined, I think, and set those
that's a good
boundaries.
point, yeah.
But it's hard. Well, I want to just end with a couple quick questions.
Okay.
I feel like I don't even know how long we've been going. It's been so good to just flow naturally. But I wanted to ask just, what of all of the things that you've done has really brought you the most fulfillment as a mom, as a lawyer, as a business owner? What would you kind of fills you up with pride of like the legacy and what you've created?
Well, I think by, starting in a more male-dominated field as a young female and just being able to stick with it and kind of work your way up the ladder and get the respect from the males above you, so to speak, that's brought me a lot of pride. And people look back and they go, and they say, I always knew you were going to be successful. That means a lot of different things. But if you work hard enough and put 110% into everything, you're going to have success. Whatever that success looks like to one person might be different to another person. But the one thing I love about this is my kids have been on this journey with me, even though when they were little, they didn't realize it.
They were on it.
And just at various ages, they're 32 and 28 now, they really have this respect for me as a businesswoman as well as a mom. And that's kind of... that's really fulfilling because I have like no ego. I could settle $1 million case and go home, and my husband and my kids, they wouldn't have any idea.
Yeah.
Because that was another thing. I didn't talk about it, but I divide it. When I left work, I left work.
Okay.
I
that's good. No, that's an important point.
Tried not to bring work home and talk about work. But so that's kind of a really neat thing that my kids like think, wow, mom's that's pretty
badass.
cool.
Yes.
She's,
I'll
but
say it, 'cause you don't have an ego, but
no,
yes.
because I know. But so they always are like, they love the fact that their mom has been successful.
Yeah.
And that has provided them with this desire to be successful in whatever it is that they want to do. And my daughter is not a mom yet. She wants nothing more than that, but she's very successful in what she does in her career. And she always says, I just want to be like you where I can do it all. So that's a pretty, that's something that's very, I'll help her for sure. Yeah. And then just mentoring all all the people, especially the younger gals that have come through our office, whether they were a receptionist, a paralegal, an attorney, how much impact I've had on them
Yeah.
in their careers and their motherhood has been,
That's so
and I stay in touch with a lot of them. I mean,
Yeah.
it might have been 25 years ago we worked together, and I still, reach out, and we still have a relationship. So I think that if I look back, it's just the impact that I've been able to have on my kids and my people that have worked with me and
Yeah.
for me over
Yeah.
the years. So
That sounds
that's pretty. That's a nice legacy, I guess, if
Yeah.
you want to say.
No,
when
that's
I look
huge.
when I'm older and I look back, what did I leave? I
Yeah.
would say that's the impact.
That's incredible. It's all we could hope for, to be honest. And
Yeah.
it doesn't come easy. I know
Yeah.
you've worked so hard
Yeah.
and overcome so many little moments and big moments,
Yeah.
of disappointment and recovering and
Yeah.
even giving yourself grace, to keep going. So I just applaud you.
Yeah.
I'm so
Thank
happy
you.
to hear more about you and your story.
Oh, I need time.
And in person.
Yeah.
So I did want to close. So, this podcast is called The Mother-in-Law, and obviously we are mothers-in-law, but
Yes.
one of the relationships that I like to just share tips and tricks with, if you're willing to just share with our listeners what your relationship with your mother-in-law was like, and anything you learned from that could help others that are trying to be a good daughter-in-law.
My mother-in-law was very, very kind woman. Interestingly enough, she worked also. So she and I shared at times the difficulty of,
That's
of course,
nice.
her children were older and she had gone through the workforce already, but we had that connection of being that working mom. So we shared a lot of that, and she used to help me sometimes when I would have that guilt. She would, kind of. We would have that conversation about what that was like. And when my mom passed away, the one thing I always respected about my mother-in-law is she was never a meddler at all in my marriage, in raising our kids or anything. She let us do our thing, as my mom did too. But when my mom passed away, I'll never just forget her just saying, I love you. You are my daughter. I will never try to take the place of your mom, because I know how close you guys were, but I will always be here for you. And that meant a lot to me, because I was really close with my mom.
Yeah.
And so when I lost my mom, it was like I lost a piece of me, but I knew at the same time that my mother-in-law would step into that role in any way that I might need her to or ask her to. And that was a really kind, sweet thing for her to do.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, and she's been gone now for a while too, and I do look back, and those are my memories with her, those conversations about the
that's amazing.
work-life
Yeah, to
balance,
have
mom
that.
balance, and then just what it's like to be a mom.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that and
Yes,
for all
of
of your
course.
insights today. And I literally, I can't wait to listen in and absorb more of all your good thoughts. And,
Well, hopefully somebody will get
and I
something
know
from
they
it.
will. Well, thank you for coming and joining the
Okay, my
Mother-in-Law.
pleasure, Carrie. Thank you.
You've been listening to The Mothers-in-Law with Carrie Foliani. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you found the insights and stories shared helpful as you navigate your own journey. I also hope that you enjoyed listening to my mother, not that I always do. For more resources, to connect with the community, and to continue exploring how to align your personal and professional life, visit www.themothersinlaw.com. We appreciate you.